Let's take what we just learned about circles and let's find the equation of a circle given some information about that circle. So I want to jump right into an example. Let's find the equation of a circle with points 3, -2 and 1, -7, where a line between the 2 points passes through center. Now it seems like this might not really be necessary information, this last little line here. Let's talk about why it is. So first thing, let's just think about what this would look like on the graph. We have the point 3, -2, and 1, -7. And so those 2 points fall on the circle. Well, let's think about the number of ways that could happen. This could be the circle. It could be over here. It could be that this is a much bigger circle. It's just kind of shading. I missed my points, but we're getting the idea that we don't know where on the circle this thing falls, and so it obviously carries around. It's none of these. And the reason we know that is because it told us that a line between those two passes through center. So we have those 2 points. That line has to pass through the center. And so the circle must look something like that. That is a very important part of the problem, that we know that the line passes through center, because that tells us it is the diameter, and that exactly half of that line would have to be the radius. We also know where the center is. It's the midpoint of those 2 points. And so a lot of the terms that I just threw out are relating back to things from 2 videos ago, distance and midpoint. We need to know how long this line is so that we can find diameter and in turn the radius. Radius is half of the diameter. We need to find the midpoint of this line so that we can find the center of the circle. Because remember, the circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So the r, the radius, will be the distance divided by 2, or the diameter of this line divided by 2, and the center will be the midpoint. That's the hk. So let's start, doesn't really matter, let's start with the radius. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the distance between these 2 points. Remember how to do that? It's the square root of 3 minus the 1. And in this case, I've chosen to call this point x2, meaning this will be y2 and this will be y1, x1, y1. Why did I choose it like that? No reason at all. Could we have switched that? Absolutely. Just consistency is usually our friend. So we have the 3 minus the 1, and then the -2 minus the -7. So we'll have square root of 3 minus 2 is, 3 minus 1 is 2 squared. Forgot my squared over here. -2 minus 7 is a -9 squared. So we get 4 plus 81, or 85, square root of 85. This would be the diameter, the total distance between the two. We want the radius, and so the radius would be equal to this thing divided by 2. Now, could we simplify the square root of 85? Maybe. I don't honestly really care, because what we're about to do is square it, and so whatever that square root was is going to just disappear. So we don't really need to simplify this because this isn't our final answer. Let's also find that midpoint. The midpoint be equal to, this is where I add the points, add the x values, 3 plus 1 divided by 2, and then -2 minus 7 divided by 2. 3 plus 1 is 4 over 2, and -2 minus 7 is -9 over 2. We can simplify this one to -9 halves. So now to put this all into our equation, we have x minus 2 squared plus y minus the negative turns into a plus 9 halves squared is equal to the square root of 85 over 2, that whole thing squared. So what I was just saying a second ago, the left-hand side, we're going to leave as is, so 9 minus 2 squared plus y plus 9 halves squared. But on this right-hand side, that square root goes away. We do have to remember to square the 2. So on the denominator, we get 4. So on that right-hand side, we get 85 over 4. And that is our r squared. And that's our equation. Because we have 2 points along the diameter, we can find the distance between them, take it in half, we get our radius. We can find the halfway point, that gives us the center. We have to have 2 points listed in this sort of fashion, where they are along the diameter It could tell us, hey, these 2 points fall at endpoints of the diameter. That could be another way the problem states it to us. But we have to have 2 points given to us that are along the diameter. We know the center maybe and one other point. That would be something else we could do. I chose to find the distance first. If you chose to find the midpoint first, that is fine. You can actually use that midpoint along with one of the other points to find the radius directly then. Let me show you what I'm talking about there. So I might change the problem up a little bit, or I might give us a different problem. Find the equation of a circle with a center of 3, 2, and a point of 5, 7. So if I think about what this one looks like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, that's our center. So we actually know that right away this time. We could go ahead and x minus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared, plug that one in. The question is, over here, what's the radius? What is that r squared? So we know the center, and we know another point is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's another point along the circle, and so kind of ballpark, it looks something like that. Well, this time, if we find the distance between the center and that point, we get the radius right away. So the radius is equal to the square root of, just to show you it doesn't matter, I'll switch calling it x1, y1, x2, y2. So we'll have 5 minus 3 squared plus 7 minus 2 squared. 5 minus 3 is 2, and 7 minus 2 is 5. 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25, and so we get 29. And just like before, I'm not going to worry about simplifying that. It doesn't simplify. Square root of 29 doesn't. But once we plug it into the r squared, get a 29 over here on this right-hand side, and we're done. Notice we didn't have to divide by 2 this time because we had the center and another point. Well, that distance has to be the radius, not the diameter as we had in the previous case. So if you find the center first, then you wouldn't have to worry about dividing by 2. Just 2 different ways to do the problem. Just think about what you're doing. Think about what you have and think about what you need. We need the center. A lot of times a midpoint could help us with that. And we need the radius. Well, if we have the entire distance across the diameter, we have to divide by 2. If we have the distance between the center and another point, that is the radius, and so then we're done.